Hey, what's up, fam? Welcome to Mela Stories Podcast, the space where real stories meet raw emotions. I'm your host, Cassie, and whether you're tuning in on your way to work, winding down after a long day, or just vibing in your own world, I'm glad you're here. This isn't just another podcast. Here we dive deep into love, life, heartbreak, healing, and all the crazy decisions we make in between. No filters, no fluff, just real talk, the kind that hits you in the chest and makes you think. So, grab a drink, get comfortable, because tonight we're getting into it. So, let's talk.
Okay, so you know how sometimes you come across a story and it just hits you. It lays bare all the messy, complex stuff about human relationships.
Absolutely raw and unfiltered.
Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today.
Yeah.
We found this anonymous account. It's just titled Pasted Text. And wow, it really describes a relationship fight that it went extreme.
It's intense.
Yeah, we're talking about how things like hurt feelings, maybe pride, maybe even just a lack of maturity in that moment, how they can all collide.
And lead to some pretty destructive outcomes, right?
That's exactly.
And it really shines a light on, beneath the surface of our connections, there's this really delicate balance of emotions.
Yeah.
And when those get triggered hard, the fallout can be, huge.
For sure.
And I think this anonymous story hits home because it taps into really basic things, how we connect, how we react when we feel slighted.
How things can escalate so fast.
Exactly. And our goal here isn't really to judge the people involved, right? It's more to unpack the dynamics. What were the key moments?
The points of no return.
Yeah, those turning points. And what can we, listening to this, maybe learn about how communication and emotion can just break down like that?
Right, because this isn't some abstract theory. It's a raw personal story. Someone really hit a wall in their relationship.
Firsthand.
We're not getting a neat analysis. We're seeing the immediate chaos after a big rupture. So let's start at the beginning. It kicks off with a fight.
Something most people can relate to, unfortunately.
Totally. But this one leaves this heavy tension, a real chill, the story says. And the guy's first move, just vanish.
Silence.
Total silence.
Yeah.
No calls, no text, nothing. And you immediately start thinking, what's going on inside his head there? Is it tactic? Trying to punish her? Or just needing space, but handling it really badly?
Well, that initial silence, it's
Yeah.
a really interesting point to look at, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because for one person, maybe that is just needing a cool down period, trying to get their own emotions in check.
Right, makes sense.
But for the other person, especially with zero explanation, that can hit some deep fears. Abandonment, maybe?
Definitely.
From an attachment theory angle, if your partner suddenly withdraws like that, it can really activate that anxious part of you. You feel distressed, you need reassurance.
And you're not getting it.
Exactly. So what seems like a neutral act, silence, suddenly becomes loaded with negative meaning. It really depends on the people and their history,
And it's right there in that silent void that things just explode. She feels completely ignored, and the text says, desperate for attention.
Which is a powerful feeling.
Oh, yeah, and she makes this incredibly dramatic choice. Sleeps with her ex.
Wow. That's a huge reaction.
All right, you read that and just think, whoa! It doesn't feel like it's about healing or getting back together or anything positive.
Yeah.
It feels like pure retaliation, just trying to get any reaction out of him because of that silence.
It's such a stark example of how intense emotional pain can push us towards actions that aren't just self-sabotaging,
But relationship destroying.
completely corrosive.
Yeah.
It seems like the main driver wasn't, a genuine wish to reconnect with the ex.
Doesn't seem like it.
It feels much more like wanting to make her partner feel that same level of pain, that isolation, maybe the feeling of being replaced that she felt during his silence.
See how this feels.
Exactly. It speaks to that really basic human thing, wanting some kind of fairness in emotional experience, like tit for tat.
Yeah.
But as this story shows so clearly, that kind of scorekeeping almost never leads anywhere good. It just digs the hole deeper.
Absolutely. Because while she's doing this, the guy, maybe he realizes the silence isn't working. Or maybe he genuinely starts missing her. Whatever it is, he reaches out.
Okay.
Sends a simple text, just asks if she's okay. Seems pretty normal, right? A considerate gesture almost in all this mess.
A bit of an olive branch, maybe?
Could be. But this is where it gets even darker. She answers her phone.
Oh, no.
while she's with the ex. And instead of just answering, he hears,
Oh, moaning.
oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Followed by this incredibly cold line, I'm safe and being sexed good.
Oof. That phone call, that solidifies the whole rupture, doesn't it?
Totally.
It's so calculated, designed purely to cause the maximum amount of emotional pain.
Yeah, the cruelty of it and the context, doing it right then.
It moves past just cheating into, like, weaponizing intimacy itself.
Exactly.
And what's really striking is how fast it all escalated. We went from silence to betrayal to this, like, theatrical performance of the betrayal.
Yeah.
It suggests empathy just completely broke down. When hurting the other person becomes more important than understanding them, well, you see this kind of destructive spiral.
It's like she just took all her own hurt and, like, magnified it, aimed it right back at him like a weapon, and the fallout is instant. Devastating. The next day, she goes home, maybe feeling a bit of regret, who knows.
But he's gone.
Gone. Stuff gone. Calls blocked. And then that final WhatsApp message.
The pregnancy one.
Yeah. Go remove the pregnancy if actually you are pregnant. Just chillingly detached. Final.
That message just drives home the complete collapse of their connection, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
There's no warmth left, no hints of trying to fix things. It's just raw anger, hurt, but also just cutting the cord completely.
Severing it.
Yeah. And mentioning pregnancy, whether it's real or not, just adds another layer of pain, suspicion. It shows how trust is just completely evaporated.
Gone.
It's a really brutal example of what happens when conflict escalates and people start attacking each other instead of, trying to talk.
So let's dig into some of these dynamics a bit more, like the original storyteller kind of invites us to. Starting with him, that choice to go silent. Was it the best move?
Probably not in hindsight.
You can kind of get the impulse, right? Need to cool off, step back. But like you said, the silence itself became a huge trigger.
It did.
Could something simple like, hey, I need some space right now to think, but I do want to talk later, could that have changed things?
It's impossible to know for sure, obviously. But it feels possible, right? It at least opens a door for later conversation, acknowledges the other person. Sometimes silence, even if you mean well, just feels like rejection, pure abandonment.
Yeah.
Exactly. The intention behind the silence might have been okay, self-regulation, avoiding more fighting right then.
Sure.
But the impact on her is what really mattered in this case. It shaped her reaction. No communication leaves a vacuum.
And she filled it with the worst possibilities.
Pretty much. She filled it with her own negative interpretations, and that fueled what she did next. It just highlights, again, how vital clear communication is, even when it's hard.
Especially when it's hard.
Yeah. A quick explanation, I need space, plus maybe some reassurance about reconnecting later, that can land so differently than just nothing. Ghosting, basically.
And then her choice, sleeping with the ex. The story frames it as, coming from pain, desperation for attention.
Which are real feelings.
Absolutely. But the storyteller asks this too, is using intimacy like that as a weapon ever going to lead to healing?
It seems unlikely. Highly unlikely.
Yeah, it feels like it just caused a much bigger explosion, more devastation. Hard to see how that action could lead anywhere but more hurt, more destruction.
Exactly. The initial pain of being ignored. Understandable. But choosing to retaliate in such a personal, damaging way, it suggests maybe a lack of healthier ways to cope with that distress.
Right.
It points to maybe not being able to process her own hurt constructively, so instead she resorts to something designed to inflict equal, or maybe even worse, pain back.
The cycle of hurt.
Yeah, perpetuating it. Each attack just escalates things, pushes them further apart. It makes you wonder about, emotional regulation skills under pressure.
For sure. And that phone call, man, it really feels like the moment, the point of no return.
It does, doesn't it?
Because up until then, maybe.
Yeah.
Just maybe.
Yeah.
There was a tiny chance, misunderstanding, maybe a way back.
Yeah.
However destructive things already were.
Possibly. Remotely.
But that act,
Yeah.
so deliberate, delivered with such blatant cruelty, it just feels like it shatters whatever foundation was left. Trust, respect, gone.
It wasn't just the act itself, the infidelity.
No, it was the delivery.
Exactly, the intentional communication of it. That call really shows that breakdown in empathy we talked about.
Total breakdown.
The main goal shifts completely to just hurting the other person. No thought for their feelings, no thought for the relationship's future. It's just inflict pain.
It's a really stark, painful example of how fast things can fall apart when communication dies and intense hurt takes over.
Yeah. And the casual way she says it, being sexed good while doing what she's doing, It's so jarring. It just highlights the massive gap that opened between them.
And in his final message, that short, cold final statement.
The nail in the coffin.
Feels like it, like drawing a line. For him, it was absolutely over. Done. You can feel the pain underneath maybe, but it's just buried under this finality.
Yeah. A brutal consequence of all the choices made leading up to it, the shortness of it, the words used. It says so much about how deep the damage went. It's direct, almost, clinical. Just stating the situation as he sees it now. And bringing up the pregnancy possibility, again, just underlines that total loss of trust and care.
Replaced by suspicion.
Yeah, suspicion and just a need to cut himself off completely from her and any potential fallout. It's a really painful picture of irreparable harm and conflict.
So this all leads back to that central question the storyteller seems to be wrestling with.
Yeah.
Why? Why, when we're hurting so much, do we sometimes lean towards destruction instead of, talking? Understanding. Why does getting even sometimes feel more appealing than actually healing?
A tough question, a really fundamental one.
Yeah. It seems like it taps into some deep human psychology, right?
Yeah.
Especially how our ego plays into fights.
It really does. I think it highlights our basic need to feel validated, to be seen, especially when we feel like we've been wronged.
Right.
And if we don't have maybe healthy communication tools or good ways to manage our emotions, that need can twist into wanting to inflict pain back.
Make them feel what I feel.
Exactly. Make them understand how deep the hurt is by mirroring it, sometimes even amplifying it. It's often a kind of misguided attempt to get back some control, or feel powerful when you actually feel really vulnerable and helpless.
Trying to restore some kind of balance, maybe.
Yeah, that idea of restoring equity, even if the way you do it is ultimately destructive for everyone involved.
It's like this battle of egos, like the story hints at.
It definitely feels that way.
And like any war, the costs are just huge.
Yeah.
Nobody really wins here, do they? Just two people left with massive emotional scars.
Nope. No winners.
So this anonymous story, even though it's so specific and dramatic, it really does hold up a mirror, doesn't it? Reflecting some of those darker impulses we might all have in relationships.
It does.
Makes you think about how we handle those really tricky moments when love and conflict get tangled up.
Exactly. It kind of forces us to look at our own potential reactions, doesn't it? When we're hit with intense emotional pain. Do we lean towards talking it out, even when it's hard and uncomfortable? Or do we automatically jump to defense mechanisms, like withdrawal?
Or worse, retaliation.
Or worse, yeah, actions that just make the gap wider. This story is just such a powerful reminder of how destructive unchecked emotions can be.
And how important it is to actively work on healthier ways to handle conflict.
Critically important.
So, for everyone listening, what parts of this really struck you? Can you maybe see bits of your own experiences or people you know in these reactions, this crazy escalation? When you've been hurt in a relationship, have you ever felt that pull, that urge to retaliate, to get even, that felt stronger than wanting to fix things, to understand?
It's worth thinking about, honestly.
It really is. The storyteller even kind of asks implicitly, would you have reacted differently? Have you ever done something impulsive just to get a rise out of someone you care about? It's definitely food for thought. Room for self-reflection.
And it really pushes us to think about the long game, right? The long-term consequences of our actions when we're just overwhelmed by emotion.
Totally.
That immediate, maybe satisfying feeling of striking back, it usually doesn't measure up to the lasting damage it does to the relationship, and honestly to ourselves too.
Yeah.
It brings up that fundamental question, what's more important? Our ego-driven reactions right now, or the deeper need for love and connection we actually want from our relationships? What really serves us better in the end?
It really does ask that. It highlights just how fragile these intimate connections can be.
So fragile.
And how easily they can break when we choose that immediate emotional outburst over really thinking, communicating, having empathy for what our partner might be going through. So as you go about your day, maybe just mull that over a bit. That delicate balance between the hurts that inevitably happen.
They do happen.
And the really crucial conscious work of choosing healing. Choosing understanding over that tempting, but ultimately, destructive path of getting even.
It's complicated, this love stuff.
It really is. But maybe looking at these more extreme stories helps us all get a little better at navigating it in our own lives.
And maybe just remembering that choosing dialogue, even when it feels impossible, can actually be the stronger, more mature path.
Right.
It leads towards understanding, maybe connection, which is usually better than the fleeting win of retaliation. It's about shifting focus from winning the fight
to saving the relationship.
Exactly. Preserving and maybe even strengthening the relationship itself.
And that's a wrap for today's episode on Mela Storyz podcast. If this hit home for you, made you feel something, or gave you a new perspective, do me a favor. Share it with someone who needs to hear it too. Don't forget to subscribe and like. It helps more than you know. And if you've got a story, a thought, or even just a, yo, I felt that, slide into the comment section. I want to hear from you. Until next time, stay real, stay grounded, and whatever you do, don't lose yourself trying to prove a point to someone who already stopped listening. Much love. Talk soon.
Mellow stories where the heartbeats rise, turning whispers into vivid skies. Feel the thrill, the joy, the cries. Life's a tale, no disguise. Emotions run like rivers wide. Every story